joining us now, great to welcome on our Book Talk segment a man who's really led a fascinating life and done great service to our country. He's written about it in his book. It's called The Silence of War, an Old Marine and a Young Marine's War. We're joined today by Terrance McGowan, and he joined us by telephone today. And Terry, good to talk with you. How are you?
Good to talk with you. I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I had a chance to read through the book, and I'll say up front, thank you for your service. You've done it in several different capacities as a policeman, FBI, and Marine. So you've almost done it all, I guess.
Well, thank you for your support.
You started out as a policeman. Well, now, where were you? Where were you a policeman? Here in Florida, or?
No, I'm from New York originally, and I went to college in Poughkeepsie, New York. I was born and raised in Yonkers, New York. Went to high school in the Bronx. I went to college in Poughkeepsie, which, for people who are curious to know how I got Bill O'Reilly to write the foreword, he and I went to college together. So we both went to college.
Sure. Right.
Both went to Marist College.
Marist. I was going to say, he played football at Marist, right? I heard him talk about that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And so when I graduated from Marist, I became a cop in a little village called Wappingers Falls, and it was a great experience. And then I went from there to the Dutchess County Sheriff's Department. Went from there to the Marines, and then from the Marines back to the Sheriff's Department, and then to the FBI. And after I retired from the FBI, I went to law school, and that's when 9/11 occurred, and things took off from there.
Yeah, that was the turning point for so many people, and your story included. I grew up in New York, too. I grew up in Long Island. So if you were a New York area policeman, it prepares you well for whatever you do after that, right?
Yeah, I suppose it does.
Well, 9/11, of course.
O'Reilly's from Westbury. I don't know if you know where. You probably know where Westbury is.
Yeah, I grew up in Floral Park, right near where Belmont Racetrack is, if you know where that is. So, yeah, I know Westbury well. But yeah, 9/11, I was up there that week, happened to be on vacation in New York that week, and of course changed everybody's life here. But that was a day that you decided to go into the military, or go into the Marines, right? Or back in.
Well, I'd been a Marine already. I tried to get back in.
Right.
In fact, I tried to get back in once. I did get back in once before during the first Gulf War. I was an FBI agent, and I went on the forgiveness is easier to obtain than permission theory, and I just kind of slid back into the Marine Reserve without telling them, in hopes that they would deploy me, but they did not. And much to my great dismay, they managed to win the war without me, which was humiliating. And after a couple of years of that, I just went back to being an FBI agent. So after 9/11, I called Marine recruiters again and thought, let me see if I can't replicate my earlier success. And when the recruiter heard my age, he just about choked on his coffee. And I quip about it in the book, and I say, he said, don't call us, we'll call you, but only if aliens from outer space invade Los Angeles.
Now, is that unusual? Because, like you said, you had been a policeman and an FBI agent. I've never heard of it, but do other FBI agents, or have they gone into the military after they've been an agent?
Typically, most people age the way they're supposed to. I'm a mutant, according to my brother. And I was just texting with one of my cousins, and it's like my mother's side, which is her side as well. I mean, she's 2 years older than me. She doesn't look anything like her age. You know, we get good genetics from that side of the family. Right. So, you know, by the grace of God, I'm able to do the things I'm able to do. But that's not normal. That's unusual. So no, the typical FBI agent does not get out of the FBI and then join the military. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah, I just wondered if there have been many that have been agents that have gone back into the military or into the military afterwards. But
no, I wouldn't think so. There were a number of guys who were in the LEP program, law enforcement professional, which is what I was in Afghanistan. A number of guys who were retired at this, that, and the other thing in law enforcement, and went into that program. But typically, they're not out there on the tippy point of the spear like I was. Typically, they're doing intellectual style work back somewhere in the rear areas.
Yeah, the LEP, like you said, law enforcement professional. So you got back in. I guess that's more of a civilian in a sense, right? You're not. Do you still have a ranking?
Yeah, no, technically I was a civilian, no question. Supposedly I had the GS rank, which would be the equivalent of a lieutenant colonel or a colonel, but actually that and a buck and a half will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. That didn't mean spit to anybody. What meant something to everybody was the fact that I was a former Marine. and they accepted me as such. They accepted me as a Marine.
And you talk about in the book, because being a law enforcement professional cop and then FBI, you had that experience of being able to kind of pick out people that look shifty, right? You learn that.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Yeah, every good street cop or street agent learns that and learns it early on. Actually, I went to law school. I could start quoting legal cases to you too. Terry v. Ohio, the Supreme Court acknowledged that for whatever reason, police are able to spot people like that, and so they created what was called a Terry stop. It's the lawful right to stop somebody with less than probable cause. Just because cops can spot things like that.
I think growing up in New York helps that too. I was living up there. You sort of know people better just from what you see every day.
You do. You do. Yeah, you have to. You do. You're aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact.
And again, the book, The Silence of War, you tell these harrowing stories, many of them, of your experiences in Afghanistan. Did the other soldiers, obviously the age difference, did that mean anything? Did they respect you more or less, or how was that for you?
I think they get a kick out of it, to tell you the truth. I remember one guy, his nickname was Brownie, and I never used to fasten a chin strap on my helmet. We called them helmets in my day when I was on active duty. Now they call them Kevlar, based on the material they're made out of. And Brownie used to get the biggest kick out of me with his chin strap flop, and he called it the Vietnam look. So they got a kick out of that. Initially, I remember my first patrol ever, and it was, of course, devilishly hot, and when I was fascinated by the details I was spotting. I stumbled across what was obviously a drug overdose by some Afghan soldier, and I was fascinated by that. I was going through the evidence and all that stuff, and all of a sudden I realized the rest of the patrol's gone, but they had left one guy with me, and I just thought, man, this is the Marine Corps. This guy wouldn't leave me if the 5th Taliban horde came over the hill, But when we finally caught up to the rest of them, the squad, they were all arrested up and ready to go back, and the squad leader looks up at me and he goes, "Well, he's still walking." I tried not to look as tired as I was, but I did get acclimated to it. I learned, I got acclimated to it, so I got better at it.
Just to let the audience know, you were 59 when you went over there, right?
58. I turned 59 over there.
Over there, yeah. So you're about 25, 30 years older than most everybody there. Well, most of the soldiers.
Oh,
right?
Probably more than that. The oldest guy in the platoon I ended up with was 27. They called him Grandpa.
Is there? Well, you mentioned the heat, and we just talked before we went on. We're here in Florida, but just reading your book and some of the descriptions of, I guess I can't really get how hot it was. Just from I guess you have to be there to really understand it. But it's unbelievable how hot it gets over there.
Yeah. Bakwa was the hottest place I've ever been on Earth. It's got to be the hottest place this side of hell. Other places were very hot, but Bakwa was the absolute total worst. I had been, when I was an active duty Marine, I trained out in the Mojave Desert at Marine Corps Base 29 Palms. So, I experienced that extraordinary desert heat back then. And when people would say, tell me about it, I'd say, well, turn your oven up to 150 and climb inside to stay there. And fortunately nobody took me up on it, but yeah, it's beastly hot, but you do get acclimated to it. Your body does adjust. We're humans. We're able to survive in any climate as long as we have time to adjust.
I've been to Las Vegas in September, and that was hot enough. So I imagine it was about 20, 30 degrees hotter than that where you were.
Probably so, yeah. Probably so.
And then on top of it, obviously some of the places where you had to, be stationed over there, just the amenities just weren't there. So it's in addition to what you're going through as far as battle or whatever you have to do there, just the living conditions, very tough.
And that's true. And that's something that I write about in the book. But it's like people don't understand. It's like visualize, the sand, the texture of talcum powder. You go to sleep inside a tent with mosquito netting, and you wake up in the morning, and you and everything in that tent is covered with dust.
Right.
You're just covered in it. Your face, everything. And we didn't have any working showers or anything. We just, used bottled water splashing our face, and I shaved in front of a broken mirror, and we washed our clothes by filling a bucket with water and sloshing them around, and then until the brown water turned tan, and then you took them out and hung them out to dry because that was as clean as they were going to get. for a brief period of time, some Navy engineer, this is an echelon to the rear of where I ended up. A Navy engineer managed to get working showers going, and I remember the first time that happened, I walked in there with the uniform on and just stood there. And when the water went from brown to tan, I just started stripping off layers of uniform until I got down to me, you know. And it's like, wow, this is great, you know. But where we ended up, we didn't even have that. We went back to the slosh and the bucket method, and then hang them on a line where the sand just blows back into them, and they're just constantly stiff. And you learn to live with that stuff. It's very Marine to live a Spartan lifestyle and not complain about it. In fact, not even to think about it. You just don't even bother with it. It's just not worth talking about.
So you talk about the sand cloud or something, or it's like a sandstorm. Is that what it happens?
The sand cloud was in Kuwait. I'd never experienced that before or after.
I never heard of that until I just read your book about it. I mean, that's
I never
weird.
did either. I never heard of it, and I experienced it. It wasn't a sandstorm. It came in like fog, and it was sand particles just suspended in the air like fog. And the street lights came on from the darkness, and my eyes were stinging, and it was like, wow. Just an amazing experience. But that was Kuwait. It was different. It was different everywhere I was.
It's amazing to think places like that on Earth, all part of the same planet, but it can be place that bad that people live in.
Oh yeah, that's a fact. The funny thing to us was that Afghans initially thought we came there to take their land. And it's like, land? You couldn't pay an American to live in this country, let alone take your land. We don't want your land. We just want to get rid of the Taliban for you. Other than that, you can keep it. We don't want it.
But we're coming up to, hard to believe, the 15th anniversary of 9/11, and this book, of course, tells a lot of the similar stories that the soldiers have been through for the past 15 years, the silence of war. And I guess as you look back on it now, 15 years, it's hard to believe it's been that long, but I guess those memories are still pretty vivid for you, right?
It is hard to believe it's been that long, and yes, the memories are vivid. Of course, it was 2007 I went to Iraq, and 2008 I went to Afghanistan. That's really hard to believe it's been that long. Those memories are very fresh. I call it the silence of war because most guys can't express anything about what they went through. Sometimes they can to others who've been through it, but they can't to their wives, they can't to their friends, they can't to their families. And one guy, I wrote about it in the book, I sent him a rough draft, and he said he can only make it halfway through, and he started to cry. And he said his little daughter climbed up on his lap and said, "Don't cry, Daddy, you can have my teddy bear." And he told me that he really wanted me to write the book so that his family would understand what he went through. So what I write in the book is what I saw, what I thought, and what I felt at the time I was going through it. And there's things in there that my own family don't know about because I've never talked about it. There's things in there that the guys I was with don't know about because I hid it from them.
Right.
Like the time I, slipped behind the latrine and cried my eyes out when a couple of guys got killed. They don't know that.
Sure.
They'll know when they read the book, but they don't know now. And so my hope is that the guy's name is Zach, and he's like a kid brother to me. My hope is that this is going to accomplish what Zach and all the others wanted, that they can be able to hand the book to their wives and go, here, to some extent, this is my story, too.
Right.
And this is what it was like, as best as words can put it to paper. And that's why I call it the silence of war, because war is a silent thing. People don't talk about it.
No, that's true. Silence of War, an old Marine in a young Marine's war is the full title of the book, and just out today as we talk with Terrance Patrick McGowan. And Terry, do you have a website you can direct people to, get more information about you and the book?
No, I don't. It never occurred to me to put one up.
Oh, okay.
This is my first book.
We'll just say go to Penguin Random House, the website there. Of course, all the bookstores have the book, and we'll put a link on our website as well. But, Terry, great pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully we can do it again. Thanks again for your service
Pleasure's
and for
all
writing
mine.
the book.
Anytime. And thank you for your support.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America, isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug...